Since February 2011, I have felt like I was living two different lives. By day, I worked in sales. And when I say sales, I don't mean sending emails or hiding behind spreadsheets. I mean walking into offices, stepping into boardrooms, shaking hands with complete strangers. And my job was to open my mouth and start a conversation that made them think this person gets me, I can trust him, and maybe he can solve my problem. And here's what still amazes me. Whoever I met, wherever I was, every single conversation began with the same word. Hello. One small word, simple, ordinary, yet powerful enough to open doors. But I'll be real with you. Saying hello didn't always come naturally. In the beginning, I overthought it. What if I sound awkward? What if they just ignore me? What if I make a fool of myself? Those questions would play in my head on repeat. But over time, I learned something important. Conversations aren't about being the most interesting person in the room. They're about being genuinely interested in someone else. And when you start the right way with warmth, with curiosity, with presence, a stranger can go from just another face to someone who feels like you've known them for years. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 9 ways I learned through a lot of trial and error to start a conversation with anyone. Number 1, start with the simplest word, hello. Conversations don't really end because we run out of things to say. They end because nobody is brave enough to start. Think about it. Every friend you've ever made, every job you've landed, every relationship, every mentor, every opportunity, it all started with one tiny word. Hello. It doesn't look like much, just 5 letters. But the magic is how you say it. Because a hello can feel like almost robotic, flat, or it can carry warmth, curiosity, presence. And that's the difference people feel. Say hello with a smile, tilt your head, let your tone show that you actually care. Suddenly, that one little word opens a door. I've walked into rooms that felt stiff, everyone serious, guarded, and instead of diving straight into business, I would just start with, hello, how's your day going so far? And instantly the room shifted. People leaned back, they smiled, and they opened up. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't giving a big speech or making some bold move. Sometimes it's just taking the first step, saying the first word. 2, skip small talk and invite real talk. I've never enjoyed a small talk. How are you? Fine, busy day. And just like that, the spark dies. Small talks keep people on autopilot. Nobody remembers the 100 times they said fine. Real connection happens when you ask something that opens a story. I'll give you an example. A while back, I met a client with an unusual name. So instead of pretending I knew how to say it, I asked, that's such an interesting name. What's the story behind it? 20 minutes later, I knew about his family, his culture, even why his father chose that name. And that one question built more trust than any presentation ever could. Ask questions that can't be answered with just one word. Try things like, what's been the highlight of your week so far? How did you end up in your field? Do you remember your first day in the city? These kinds of questions they open doors to memories, to emotions and stories. And stories is where people really connect. And number 3, look for me too moments. Do you know what kills a conversation? Turning it into a debate. I'm from Delhi, oh I hate Delhi. And that's it, end of the story. Instead, look for a small thread of common ground. They don't have to be deep and profound. You like coffee? Me too. You struggle with traffic? Me too. You love dogs? Me too. That tiny overlap shifts the energy. Suddenly you're not strangers anymore. You're standing on the same side of the same thing. And once you find a point of connection, things get much smoother. I've seen this happen in the most unexpected ways. Once during a casual chat, a client mentioned his love for old Hindi songs. I just smiled and said, me too. And that was it. And we ended up talking about music for half an hour. By the time we circled back to business, the deal did not feel forced. It felt effortless. See, it's not about pretending to agree with everything. It's about finding the genuine thread that tie your worlds together. Number 4, give compliments people do not expect. Here's something most people don't realize. Everyone has a compliment shield. Tell someone who hears you're good looking every day that they're good looking and it won't land. They've heard it too many times. But when you notice something small, something real, it sticks. I remember once telling someone, I really like the way you listen. You don't interrupt. You let people finish. That's rare. See, the best compliments aren't the looks or status. They're about qualities people don't usually get recognized for. Patience, kindness, the way they pay attention, the sense of humor, their calm energy in stressful situations. A compliment like that isn't flattery. It's recognition. And recognition is the fastest way to make someone feel truly seen. And number 5, ask for their opinion. Here's a universal truth. People want their opinions to matter. Back when I worked in sales, one of my favorite conversation starters was just 3 words. What do you think? Even if I already knew the answer, I would ask. And people would lean in because suddenly the conversation wasn't about me, it was about us. And here's a trick. You've got to keep it light. Instead of asking what's your take on global matters, try what's the best movie you've watched recently. How do you usually take your coffee? What do you think of this place? And when they answer, here's a part most people miss. Listen. Don't reply, not to outsmart, just to understand. Because that's the moment you stop talking to a stranger and start seeing the person behind them. Number 6, be present. We live in the most distracted time in history. Phones buzzing, notifications popping, eyes darting everywhere. But here's what I've learned. When you give someone full attention, undivided attention, not half listening, just pure presence, you instantly stand out. Presence is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. Sometimes it's not your words that make someone feel important. It's your attention, your eye contact, your nod, and a pause long enough to really hear what they're saying. And that's what makes people open up. And number 7, remember the little things. This is one of my favorite because the details matter. Names, stories, the little things people mention in passing. I'll give you an example. A client once told me about his son's football match. Weeks later, when I saw him again, I asked. He was surprised and asked, "Do you remember that?" And I said, "Yes, I did," because conversations aren't transactions. They're investments. When you remember someone's dog's name or the city they grew up or the story they told you about their first job and you bring it up later, you're sending a powerful message. You matter. And when people feel they matter, they stop being strangers. They become connections. Number 8, leave space for silence. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Silence. Most people rush to fill it. The second there's a pause, they jump in, nervous, scrambling for words. But silence is so powerful that a pause gives people room to breathe, to think, to go deeper. I've had conversations where the quiet moment, just letting the other person sit with their thoughts, opened the doors to something real. Something they probably wouldn't have heard if I had interrupted. So don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes connection isn't built in what you say. It's built in what you're willing to hold back. And number 9, end on curiosity. Here's the last one. Don't let a conversation fade out with a flat goodbye. Leave a thread that makes the next conversation easier. It can be something simple as, "I would love to hear more about that next time." "Hey, send me that song you mentioned. I want to check it out." Little things like that say, this doesn't have to be the last time we talk. Because the best conversations don't close doors. They leave them slightly open, waiting for you to step through again. So there you go, 9 ways to start a conversation with anyone. No tricks, no rehearsed lines, just small human things that make a big difference. Because at the end of the day, the gap between a stranger and a friend, between silence and possibility, often comes down to the courage to say one small word. Hello, try it this week. Start one conversation you wouldn't normally start. You might be surprised where it leads. And if this resonated with you, pass it along to someone who needs that little push to speak up. Thank you for watching. See you next time. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel.